All right. How is everybody? Hope everyone's doing well. Um, this is winding down to the last of the last stuff. So glad you hung in there with me to get to this point. Um, so the last stuff to talk about is what's called linear regression and scatter plots. Um, the homework shows you some graphs and um, you know, trying to interpret that, as well as finding an equation of a line. So we'll talk about that as well. Might be a little bit backwards, but right now what we're going to do is just discuss quickly, or I don't know, maybe not quickly, but the types of linear graphs that might come out of data when we're looking for linear um, relationships. And by linear, that just means a line. As you can see, this right here, if we connected those dots, right? It's about going up like that. This is also going up. This is kind of going down. This is going down. And we're not going to talk about that. That would be an x squared function. So right now we're just looking at some single x as it relates to y. So with all that being said, we create scatter plots with data in order to first capture whether there might visually be a relationship between those two data points. You could have, once you plot your data on your x-axis and your y, then you might have lots of dots really close together like this, and then they go up in this pattern. So this would indicate a strong positive correlation. So positive just means that as x increases, so does y, okay? You might see something that is going up, but maybe not as close knit with all these dots. These are really close together. These are still following that pattern, but they're a little bit looser. There's more space in between, but it's still showing a positive correlation, and we would reference that maybe as a moderate, okay? Down here, we see that we have dots going down, not really super tight, but again, it is showing a pattern, and that pattern is a negative correlation. So negative in the sense that as x increases, your y is decreasing. And then over here, this would show a more stronger negative correlation. So the dots are closer together and it's still going down. So again, this would show a strong negative correlation. Now, again, you don't get the terms positive and negative. It's not a value on the data. It's not that negative means bad and positive means good. It just means that as whatever variable I have here, in this case for a negative situation, as this increases, this decreases, okay? So maybe that's a good thing, right? Like, homicide rate, you really don't want a big homicide rate. You don't want a lot of murders in your town. So having a negative correlation when it comes to homicide would be something that people are like, yeah, woohoo. A positive correlation, again, might be a positive thing in context, but it might also be something to watch out for, like increase of chlamydia on college campuses. That would you don't want a whole lot of chlamydia and STDs and STIs. So again, it's not a value about positive or negative, it's just what direction is that line going. And then this is important too, right here. So if you see just a blob or kind of just what looks like a blob of points. They're not really going up, they're not going down, they're just bleh. That indicates it was super weak or no correlation. So, you know, that could happen with data. There could be no relationship to it. So, just gotta plot it and see. And 1 second, I have to pause you guys. All right, sorry about that. Phone rang and daughter came home at the same time. Okay, so we talked about the pictures, and we're going to talk here quickly about creating a scatter plot. Okay, and then I'm going to make 2 different videos, one on using a website to get the equation and one on using a handy dandy calculator. So whatever one you want to use works for me. Okay, so in this example, we have an educator wants to see how the number of absences for a student in her class affects the student's final grade. The data obtained from the sample are shown. So we see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 students. So this student had 10 absences. Their final grade was a 70. This student had 12 absences. Their final grade's a 65, so on and so forth. Okay. So when you make a scatter plot, you put your data down first and see what's up. Usually, not always, but usually the data here is your X and the data here is your Y. Okay. So when we talked about line graphs, dependent and independent variable. So the independent variable in this case would be the number of absences, and then the dependent variable would be the final grade. So it's like saying your final grade is dependent on the number of absences that you have. And so here we see, oops, sorry, that the number of absences, the lowest is 0 and the highest is 10. So again, we're going to plot 0 through 10 down here. And for the grade, the lowest is 65 and the highest is 96. Okay, so that would go up here. All right, so when we put our data down, again, this is the X, the Y. Number of absences goes from 0. I gotta space this out more. 10. And the final grades start from 65 and go up to 96. So again, we're not going to start at 0 and go up to 100. That would be way too long. So we can just start at like 60. And then I'd say go by 5s. Okay. And then we plot the data. So this has this first data point has a, right here, X of 10 and a final grade of 70. So we go to 10 for our X and final grade of 70. About there. This one has a absence of 12 and final grade of, oops, I guess I need to go further, 12 to 65. So, silly me, forgot something. So go to 12 and 65. All right, here. This had an absence of 2 and 2 and 96. So go to 2 up to 96-ish, kind of around with that. 0 absences, they had a 94. 8 absences, they had a final grade of 75. And 5 absences, they had a final grade of 82. All right, so as you can see, it's not perfect, right? We have a little blurp, blurp kind of thing going. But we could, this is pretty, you know, at least eyeballing it, doing it by hand, we would say that even though we only have 6 data points, they kind of all fall in line pretty well. So we would say this would have a strong negative correlation or relationship. And again, it's negative because as the number of absences increase, the students' grades decrease. And I bet you can all relate to that, right? So, you know, just eyeballing a graph, the homework will give you some data points just like this, and then they'll give you options to choose, like multiple choice. So just look and see where the data points are and what matches with the information given. And then when we look at a scatter plot, the next thing we want to do is find what they call the line of best fit. They also call it the line of regression. And that's what I'll do next. I'll do it using a calculator, and I will do it using a website. So just watch whichever one you want to watch.